30,000 years ago, much of our planet was literally covered in ice. It was the stuff of scary stories, fantasies. A world completely covered in a winter that never ended. And in the wake of a year like the one we've been experiencing, it's almost a little bit comforting to remember that early humans had to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles to merely even have a chance at continuing our species. When faced with near extinction, a surprising symbiotic relationship occurred between early Homo sapiens and the wolf-like canids that hunted in packs across the bleak, wintry landscape sprawling the frozen earth. The bond between humans and dogs was formed in a time of extreme stress for the human race, far greater than anything anyone alive or even in written history has experienced. And truthfully, I don't know that anything else may have brought our two species together, because you see, ancient canids or early dogs were not the friendly, cuddly things that we know and love today. They were massive and scary, often weighing more than 150 pounds. They were ferocious, and they were relentless hunters that would track their prey across miles and days and weeks, even months if they needed to, until their prey was so exhausted they couldn't even fight back. In fact, that was something that we had in common with the ancient canids. Humans and canids were both what's called persistence hunters, meaning we would outrun or outlast our prey until they just couldn't go on. Humans could do this because we were extremely efficient long-distance runners with our sweating and our ability to carry water and other food on our person. Canids, because they had a nose that could track their prey for miles, it was nearly impossible to escape them. It was only a matter of time before we saw how powerful we could become if we combined our powers, so to speak. And so, at some point, several tens of thousands of years ago, most likely some extraordinarily brave humans decided to not only allow these wolf-like creatures to hang out around our camps and eat our food, but they decided to befriend them, to shape them, and to teach them to work with us. By the way, can we take a minute to appreciate how terrifying that must have been? Remember that these dogs were absolutely massive, and they had a howl that would chill you to your bones in the middle of the night. And they probably got frequently attacked. They would probably attack weak humans who they know couldn't fight back. And yet, friendship formed out of necessity. As early as 12,000 years ago, there's evidence that humans had already trained dogs to pull sleds. Remains of ancient dogs were found ceremonially buried next to humans 14,200 years ago, which is hugely significant, not just because that was so long ago and so early in humans' development, but it means that we considered this animal to be somewhat of an equal, not only as a source of food and productivity, but as a companion, a real part of the tribe, or maybe even a part of the family. Remains of dogs that are genetically divergent significantly from their wolf-like ancestors have been discovered that are even over 30,000 years ago. So it makes dogs far and away the oldest domesticated animals, predating sheep, cows, chickens, and pigs by thousands of years. Dogs are quite literally our oldest and most loyal friend. Without their help, we may never have survived that long winter of the last glacial period. It makes them amazing hunting partners and companions and pets, obviously, but I think that it holds even more significance than that. Humans and dogs are connected genetically, but not because we're necessarily closely related evolutionarily speaking, but we essentially turned each other into the species that we needed to survive. We both willingly and deliberately left a permanent imprint on each other's genetic code, which is something that no other species was capable of doing as far as we know in Earth's history. We were the first species to have the intelligence to domesticate animals and to actually imprint upon that species a little bit of ourselves. It's very significant. It's living evidence of what we valued as humans. The qualities that we instilled in our closest companions. I believe that dogs are living evidence of human goodness. So you've come home from a long day at work. You're tired and you're stressed. You come home to your loyal, smiling, furry companion, and all is well until you discover that your perfect little angel baby has chewed up your pillow or your armchair or your favorite stuffed animal. You're mad, and your dog can tell. He may cower and hide his eyes. He may snuggle up to you, seeming as if he's almost begging for forgiveness, and you can swear that in his eyes you see the very real guilt that you're all too familiar with. And he may not understand what he's done wrong, but you can tell that he feels bad about it and he wants to make it right. Or does he? What emotions are dogs actually capable of experiencing? And when your dog looks guilty, is it actually feeling guilt? Well, most scientists will actually tell you no. There have been numerous studies done on what emotional range dogs are actually capable of experiencing. Obviously, it's really impossible to know exactly what they're feeling, but we do have some pretty strong evidence that dogs are capable of feeling simple emotions. Things like joy, fear, disgust, anger, and of course, love. But the more complex emotions like guilt, pride, shame, and contempt just aren't within their grasp. Now, at first, when one hears that dogs don't experience guilt or shame, you may jump to the conclusion that dogs are almost these unfeeling little sociopaths or something like that. When they do something wrong, they don't feel shame. They don't feel bad about it. We tend to have this reaction because we are constantly tempered by our fear of shame, fear of guilt, fear of pride, and fear of contempt. But I don't see it as dogs being less empathetic or less loving because they don't feel these things. Instead, I see it as quite the opposite. I see dogs as being unburdened by these emotions, which rarely, if ever, are actually positive influences on our life. Guilt, for example, may be a strong motivator in the short term, but it is rooted in fear and not a good foundation for basing behavior on. Guilt is merely a problematic side effect of a more powerful brain than any other creature on earth has possessed. A mind that can linger and dwell, process and problem solve, imagine and invent, can also create imaginary scenarios of resentment and bitterness. We live in fear that our actions may have consequences that we couldn't foresee. Because we can foresee so many things, we can plan for so much more than other creatures could. We get scared when we can't. Unfortunately, we've been programmed in so many ways to uphold things like guilt as if it's something to be valued and celebrated. Perhaps because it's evidence of our great cerebral achievement. Perhaps because we believe it is actually the evidence of human compassion. I believe that it didn't evolve out of compassion, but out of necessity as a means of controlling people from preventing us from constantly fighting because those other feelings, the simple ones, they stopped being enough. And it's interesting because I witnessed this evolution happening within myself as I got older, and I think everyone probably experiences this change whether they're aware of it or not. There's something that shifts as you get older. And you learn how the world works. Your brain grows and develops. You learn that you should feel bad when you do something wrong. You learn to be ashamed of the things that make you different. You learn to harbor resentment. These are learned adjustments to function in a very, very complex world which we really struggle to completely understand. The more we learn, the more we experience, the more we actually realize that we'll never understand it all. And these complex feelings are no more than a desperate attempt to control and to anticipate. But dogs don't need that control. Despite the fact that dogs don't feel guilt, they still undeniably want to do good. They want to do right by their humans. This shows me that their motivations are so much more pure than humans. Dogs can't regret. Dogs can't dread. Dogs can't be prideful or resentful. And without all these complex emotional regulatory systems, they still consistently do good. They remain faithful and friendly companions. Which is actually pretty miraculous, isn't it? When you consider their roots, dogs were once bloodthirsty hunters, and at one point constantly desperate and struggled to survive. How did they turn into the fluffy friend that keeps you company when you're sick? How did they turn into the beloved pet that you let into your bed, into your home, into your family? Imagine letting a different animal into your home, like a raccoon or a coyote or like a wolf. They might immediately start rummaging for food or breaking things. They might get spooked and dash into a corner where it would take hours of coaxing to get them out. Imagine spotting one of the smartest, deadliest, and most formidable predators and welcoming it into your home. If it seems insane, it's because it kind of is. But the amount of work that we have collectively done over thousands of generations and we put into domesticating dogs is nothing short of a wonder of human achievement. And I believe it is actually an enormous source of hope for us as a species. Mechanical and pragmatic advantages to dogs are immediately apparent. They have noses that can pick up scents from miles away, as I said before. They helped us track our prey even more intelligently and efficiently than we had already done. They're faster than us, and they have teeth and mandibles built for crushing bone quickly and efficiently. Their alertness is one of the best in the entire animal kingdom, observing and detecting sounds, smells, and signs that humans can't. They could warn us of impending danger. It is no wonder that we did better when we had dogs helping us survive. But the advantages that aren't as immediately apparent are the emotional and the psychological advantages. It's something that I've personally pondered upon for so long. Why can we form such a strong bond with these creatures? Yes, dogs, of course, but really it can happen with any animal that we welcome into our tribe, so to speak. Why do we derive so much satisfaction from animal companionship? And it's not the same kind of satisfaction we get from other relationships with people. It's a very specific and special satiation that is filled by a friend of a foreign species. And for everyone who has never experienced it, that very unique brand of fulfillment, I highly encourage you to try it. It's like having a friend that you can understand perfectly without having to talk, because you literally can't. You have to learn to read the emotions and feelings of something that doesn't experience the world at all the way that you do. Something that actually can't experience the world the way you do. So what you do is instead you build a bridge from your world to theirs and from their world to yours. You have to get down in the dirt and the mud, and yes, even the messier things than dirt and mud. You get your hands dirty, but you don't care because you really want to build that bridge to understand. You dig and you dig down deep because you want that foundation to be strong. You place the blocks or cut the planks, spread the mortar, or however you build that bridge, you build it. It takes a lot of work and years, but it's all worth it when you have this easy path of communication, an effortless, meaningful walkway between two beings built by their own dedication and mutual respect. I've been around dogs for just about my whole life, and they have taught me so much about that different way to experience the world, a dog way of experiencing the world. They live in the moment. They feel deeply, but more simply. They desperately want to be loved, but even more so, they desperately want to love. They're happy because they don't dwell on the past. They get the most scared when their pack is in danger. And most dogs will absolutely sacrifice themselves for the good of the pack. That, I think, is a key difference between the dog way of seeing the world and the human way of seeing the world. A dog sees the inherent value in putting the needs of the many above the needs of their own, above their own personal needs. Despite not feeling those feelings shame or guilt, they still want to do the right thing. Guilt is actually a selfish motivation, I think. I don't want to steal that because if I do, I'll feel guilty and therefore bad. I'll go to that party because my friends want me to, and I'll feel bad if I don't. Any decision I make based on guilt is merely made because I don't want to feel bad. But dogs can overcome even their most primordial instincts for the good of their pack. Starving, staying up for days at a time, enduring pain, broken bones, disease. They can put up with just about anything if it means that their pack will continue. Even observing my own dog. You see, I taught him when he was really little, when he was a puppy, to wait for his food. Something which I was so sure would be so difficult, if not impossible. After all, he's a very food-motivated dog. And he's an animal. He loves his food. How could I possibly keep a hungry animal from his food? Isn't that their instinct to go after it? Get the food. Go, go. That's what animals do. I mean, personally, when I'm hungry, I know the feeling and I know what it feels like to think nothing on heaven or earth could stop me from getting to my food. Yet my dog, Kingsley, he learned so quickly. He realized that I wanted him to wait. And I, being a member of his pack, he listened. He Didn't really fully understand. That was clear. He didn't know why I was wanting him to wait, but he just decided it was more important to keep his relationship with me healthy. It was more important to keep the peace in the pack, so he just waited. And he still does to this day. It still amazes me. This wild animal, basically a wolf, sitting here and waiting politely to eat. I marvel at it, and I marvel even more at the human arrogance that we're so much smarter than these creatures. I think we got it backwards. I think that dogs remember something that we've forgotten. I see them as almost an emissary across the ages, the ancient generations, and they bear an incredibly powerful and important message. One that we gave them long ago when our only choices were stay together or die. Embedded in their DNA are the values that we imparted on them in their evolutionary divergence from their less domesticated ancestors. Values like living in the moment because you don't know how many moments you're going to have. Values like putting the needs of others above your own, even when it doesn't really make sense to you personally. Values like loving your pack so deeply that you would give your entire being or essence, your life, if it means that the pack could continue on to fight one more day. Dogs were created essentially by us in our image. Yes, they did start out as a different animal, probably pack animals before we found them, but they weren't companions. They weren't pets. They weren't respected members of our tribe. We did that. Don't you see how incredible that is? We made them because we needed them. We needed a friend who would stay with the pack no matter what. And now, with the world in the state that it is, and the country in the state that it is, so divided, I truly believe that it's imperative we remember this fact that we once knew. A fact that we actually once taught to our best friend. We're better together, always. During the last glacial period, humanity was tested like it had never been tested before and still hasn't been tested. The only reason that we survived at all was because we stuck together. We put our own individual needs aside, risking safety and security to build a bridge between us and these terrifying wolf-like creatures that were so different and yet so helpful to each other. But it was together that we created the strength and resilience it took to survive. And we need that strength now. We are being tested again, all of us. That means putting your own pride, your own shame, your own guilt and contempt aside. See the world like we once knew was the best way to see the world, like a dog. It means loving and respecting everyone in our collective Earth tribe, regardless of their individual stuff. The politics, the religions, the sports team preferences, all of that is just the complexities, the intricacies, the details, the stuff that gets in the way of the real stuff. Those dog feelings, the love and the joy, and yes, the fear, the sadness and anger too. Remember that when you see someone who's angry or sad, how deep and significant that feeling is when you feel it. Indulge yourself with happiness and the love and let it wash over you while you can, because it can be fleeting. Live in the moment, not just for yourself, but for the benefit of everyone. We hold on to so much, the worries and the fears, regrets and grudges, and they only drive us further apart. Every single day, we've forgotten what we once knew. We are better together. Remember that message that the dogs bring us across the ages. We are better together.